Daryl Jones. I've been with Nike almost 13 years now. Consumer package background, and right now my job is really to run the Eastern region. There are 4 regions in the U.S. for Nike, and I run the Eastern region. Basically, it's New York and 13 surrounding states. So.
Was the question directed to?
I'm directing to you, Mr. Jones.
What's your name?
Raymond Jackson.
Raymond, good to meet you, man. Well, I think all of us can probably answer that to some extent. It's probably good to hear from all of us on that. Yeah, we definitely have. The revenue goals didn't increase that much. But I call it the bottom line budget goals definitely decreased. So we have less to work with to achieve the same amount. And literally it manifested in terms of how we're able to execute some of our marketing relationships, how we're able to execute consumer-driven activities. We have to be much more creative with much less dollars. So it's definitely shifted. That's long-term. It's been a fundamental philosophical shift. But then short-term, literally less money to work with. So we've seen it, and we're experiencing it right now. And actually, I'll just speak very candidly. You've probably seen within the last month or 2, Nike has announced a tentative reduction in workforce. So that shifts your plans as well. You don't have as many people to work with. My team historically is 117 people. Right now, we only have about 92 bodies in seats. I think 2 things to pay attention to are what are the function of the affinity groups within an organization? What are they there to do? And the other one is really understanding the culture of the company relative to these affinity groups. And just a quick example, I was U.S. Diversity Director for Nike for about a year and a half. And I came from a business function. I also have my own nonprofit organization. The first thing I had to do was assess the culture of Nike relative to these affinity groups. So Nike's based in Beaverton, Oregon, and it's not going to change. That can tell you a lot about the culture and the history of Nike. So it was imperative for us to define what are these affinity groups going to do within the company. If you don't really have a purpose, and honestly within Nike, we had to start building strategies for each affinity group. We had to have a strategy. And then lastly, we had to have an executive sponsor. Unfortunately, or fortunately within Nike, you really need to have someone who's championing your cause at a high level to get things done. But what we couldn't afford to do was say, hey, African American group, you need to have an African American sponsor. Actually, we flipped it. And it actually served educational purposes and also provided access to different members of the organization to get things done. So I just wanted to add that piece, and it brings up some wonderful points. The other part is just really understanding the purpose of the organization, not just, hey, where can you get a haircut? Which some groups want to go there. I mean, it can't be that, right?
Where do we eat?
Yeah, where do we eat? You have to figure out how you're adding value within the corporation, right? And developing other people such as yourself. And then truly understanding the culture and where they are relative to the culture of the company relative to affinity groups. Unfortunately not embraced by everyone. That's when you start to include those people. Quickly how I got in, and then more quickly of what that really meant. So at the time I was recruited by Nike, I was with Pepsi-Cola, and I was responsible for national accounts, trying to get contracts with Marriott's, General Motors, and Hyatt's, and that sort of thing. Trying to convert them from Coke, basically, on the fountain side of the business, not the brick and mortar side of the business. So that was what I did. And I was consumer package background, had just gotten my MBA, all that sort of thing. To this day, I cannot tell you who recommended me to Nike. So the lesson in that is always be consistent in terms of how you treat people, no matter who it is. That's really the important part, I think, in that question.
You never know. And to this day, the headhunter wouldn't even tell me. So that's one. The other is to do a true skill assessment. A skill assessment of your own skills and where you're trying to go. If they don't match and you still want that job, you figure out how to make it match. But to go in and talk about your skills, if they don't match the job you're shooting for, doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. My skills didn't necessarily match what this job was, but the person didn't recommend me based on my skill sets. So once I determined, wow, okay, I'm managing, 14 people. This is in the sports industry, and I'm selling footwear, apparel, and golf accessories. I haven't done any of that. But what they were really looking for was someone who had an entrepreneurial mindset and could grow it and start a business. So I had to flip the script. That I could do. So that became what I populated and presented to Nike. So they had just signed Tiger Woods, didn't really know what to do with it. So skill assessment of what they're looking for, skill assessment of what you have, and figure out how to market and position yourself against that skill assessment. Extremely important in any job. A lot of times folks come in and talk to me about positions, and they're great at what they do, but they haven't really done the homework in terms of what we're really looking for. So be prepared.
I'm a senior at Tufts University. Thank you guys for coming out and speaking with us today. I had a question I wanted to explore a little bit more, something that Mr. Jones said earlier at the very beginning of the panel, which is that not only because of the economic crisis, not only is there a reduction in the workforce and doing the same with less, but also a change in the philosophy and sort of culture of business and what businesses are trying to do. And I would like to see everybody's opinions on whether the economic crisis, in the long-term economic prospects of the United States being a global leader in business, if the economic crisis is going to hurt us more because we're having to make very significant drastic cutbacks and it's going to impact our core competencies and what we're able to do, or is it going to make us stronger because we are having to think more creatively about how we create our products, how we market our products, and in the long run we're going to come out stronger because we're sort of being forced to change the way our companies run to meet these challenges, especially in light of increased economic competition from China.
I think you answered your question.
Did answer your own question. It's both. We're going to be forced to become individually, professionally, collectively a lot smarter, but it won't be without some casualties. I hate to say it, don't necessarily mean from a Nike perspective, but Tiffany, what you said about losing some B players, whether it's in the retail environment or whether it's in a corporation, it's going to happen. The thing is, our company's going to have, I'll call it the discipline, to manage it correctly, because there are a lot of sacred cows that exist in society, etc. The other thing is, quite honestly, it's forcing us all to be smarter. And that's even from a personal perspective, depending upon maybe where you had money or where you were invested. We're all held accountable now for everything that's going on in our lives. So, yeah, you're seeing both happen. And there are no free passes anymore. You are forced to be extremely smart. You're forced to be extremely strategic. Yet at the same time, we're living in the moment in a lot of ways. So 3 years sounds great, and that's kind of what I led with. But the phone calls I get now are what's happening right now and what's going on for the next 3 months. I need to be able to answer those questions. I just want to say, too, I was very surprised to hear you guys are freshmen, so that's a compliment to you guys. The way you're presenting yourselves and carrying yourselves and the fact that you're here says a lot.
The next question.
Yeah, I have a business degree, but one of the most important things is not underestimating relationships and how you treat relationships and handle relationships and what you do once you establish them. That's extremely important. So the degree is cool. I mean, the fact that I have an MBA, that's because one day down the road maybe I want to teach. What I'm finding is that it's not necessarily the degree, though I think what you said, Dave, is very important. If you're going to go into a business environment, take some core business classes. But this thing around the experiences that you have and what you're able to accomplish in the relationships and the networks are extremely important too. So finding that balance of all of that is really, really important. I'm not saying don't do a business degree or don't do an MBA. It works for me, but it won't preclude you from getting into the business world. Might be a little tougher, but somehow, you know, we're all here, right? So.
Yeah, I think the answer
I think are all interested to see is Nike trying to reduce their carbon footprint.
Absolutely. Globally, huge campaign. And in the U.S., I led by saying we're based in Beaverton, Oregon. So nature and ecological footprint is very important to us. We are known as tree huggers in Oregon, if you haven't heard that term before. And so lived there for 2.5 years, worked with Nike there for 2.5 years. So any office I've worked in Nike outside of that office, I've actually been surprised, if not disappointed, in how little we're embracing this whole thing. So just recently in our office, which, you know, it's on the Chelsea part of town, we're starting to try and do more environmentally to mirror what we're doing at the corporate level. We have a long way to go, but based on where we are now, anything we do is an improvement. So to answer your question, we've taken a strong initiative locally to make sure that we're a lot more environmentally friendly. And that's all the way from, you know, styrofoam cups and that sort of thing. That's where we are right now. We're proud to say that we're embracing it. You know, the more you do this, the more you need to rejuvenate. And work-life balance does become very important. I've moved personally 5 times in 8 years, different cities. So hopefully 5 years from now, I'll be in a place where I can at least say for the next 3 years, I'm going to be probably means abroad for me, you know, in another country, and I'm okay with that right now. But wherever it is, allowing me to continue to help develop folks in other positions, younger folks. I also learn when I work with younger folks, so whatever I'm doing, I want to be in a position to have that interaction.